Hi. Oop. Hi, hello, how you doing? It's Dashy. Wanted to go ahead and just talk about some memorable times that I've been injured. Nothing too major. I've never been to the hospital. I just wanted to talk about them because most of them are funny. The first time I really remember getting injured was when I was in band. I think this was 7th or 8th grade. I was going to set up my seat and my stand and everything, as you do in a band. And one of the other band members was one of those weird people. I guess he had like a little crush on me and he would mess with me. So in order to mess with me that day, he tried to grab my music stand out of my hand. And me, being me, I looked at him, I told him to let go of the music stand, and I threatened to bite him. And he didn't think that I was being serious for whatever reason. So he ended up not letting go. I went in full force for a bite on the hand to get him to let go of my music stand. And when he realized that I was going to actually bite him, at the last second he moved his hand and my tooth hit the music stand instead. So, I ended up chipping my tooth. I thought my tooth was like full on broken. I didn't tell the teacher at all. I'm sorry if you're learning this now, but I broke my tooth in your class. But anyway, so I didn't tell the music teacher. I was like, I don't want to tell anybody, because like I would have gotten in trouble for threatening to bite this kid and like for actually trying to bite him. So that was fun. I ended up not going throughout the entire class. I was gonna say shift. I worked too much. I went through the entire class without like actually playing my instrument. I pretended like I did. And then at the end of this class, again, I was gonna say shift. I ended up looking at my friend. I was like, hey, can you look at my tooth real quick? Because I was spitting out little chunks of tooth. And she goes, why? And I was like, I think I broke it. And she was like, oh. So she looked at my tooth and she goes, you broke your tooth. I'm like, oh. So I went home, and immediately my mom naturally freaked out, thought she needed to take me to the dentist. But then after like calming down and looking at my tooth, she was like, does it hurt? I was like, no. And she goes, you're fine. Naturally. The next time I really remember like hurting myself was, I don't remember what year of high school it was. I think it was freshman year. I was hanging out with my friend Allie, and her friend was along for the hanging out-ish thing, and they both wanted to ride bikes. I don't know how to ride a bike. I wanted to spend time with them though, so Allie gave me her scooter to use, and I don't know how to ride a scooter either. So I didn't think it was going to be that hard, because I've never heard of anybody actually like failing at riding a scooter. But it wasn't one of those normal scooters that just stay flat to the ground, like the board just stays flat to the ground. No, it was one of those fancy scooters that you're supposed to do tricks on, and the board was like bending in the middle intentionally. But I couldn't control it. So Allie's in front of me, Darby's behind me, and I'm trying to ride this scooter very weirdly. I didn't get very far. I also didn't get very fast. So I ended up falling. Darby screams. Allie turns around and comes back to see if I'm okay. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. The way I landed on the ground was normal, except for my leg and my foot, where my foot was flat on the ground and so was my leg. So I hurt, but I was like, I'm fine. So I was like, I'm gonna go home. I was over at her house. So I ended up limping home to her house, and I took my shoe off. I didn't take my sock off at that point, but I did scream mom. And Allie's mom comes around the corner and looks at my foot. I said, I'm gonna need you to call my mom because I'm pretty sure I broke my foot. So she calls mom. My mom comes. She's like, I'll be there in 10 minutes. And she comes and she looks at my foot. She goes, what did you do? I'm like, I was riding a scooter. There's this golf ball sized lump on my foot. And everyone's freaking out. So I ended up going home, and I don't remember if my mom like originally planned to take me to the hospital, but she didn't. She ended up actually just looking at my foot and deciding that I was fine, which this is the second time that has happened with my feet. The first time was when I was like 6, and me and my sisters were playing around in the living room, and I ended up hitting my foot somehow, and like we all thought it was broken. My mom ended up getting me dressed to go to the hospital, getting me in the car to go to the hospital, and last second before we left the driveway decided, nah, we're not gonna go to the hospital, it's fine, you're fine, it's fine. Turns out a couple of years later, specifically like 18, I find out my foot was actually broken. And fun fact, I have a hole in my bone. Okay, so anyway, I injured myself on the scooter. Fun facts, I was on crutches for 3 weeks because it hurt so bad. I was also involved in the marching band, and this was during marching season, so I was like out of commission for 3 weeks, and my marching director was kind of like mad. My bad, sorry. Another time I ended up hilariously injuring myself. This was back in middle school, so like I'm sorry I'm going time frame, random time frame. But I was hanging out with the boys. I always hung out with the boys because it was just more interesting and less drama. So I ended up following everybody out while they were on recess. It wasn't really recess, it was just free time during English, and we ended up going outside. I don't know if it was English or language arts at that point. I don't know the difference. We ended up going outside, and I was like playing around with everybody. We were all just like running around. I don't know why. I don't know if we were like playing chase or anything. So I was following around this guy named Owen, and he ends up climbing a tree, a big tree. And I'm like, cool, I'm gonna do that too. So he climbs the tree. I'm following, climbing the tree. He jumps out of the tree. I don't. Because at that point, I lost all gumption. I lost all ability to have faith in myself that I would get out of that tree without breaking my ankle. So I'm holding onto the tree, sitting in it, trying to get down. I asked for my friend to come help. Not Owen, Brett. I asked for Brett. I'm yelling Brett's name. And he's coming around the tree, and he looks at me. No response and no help. So I ended up like sliding myself down the tree with my arms like raising slightly because I'm holding onto the tree for dear life. So I slid out of the tree, and I ended up like on the ground safely, I thought. I'm running around. I think I was following Matt, and all of a sudden James told me to look at my arm because there was blood, and I'm like, what do you mean? So I looked at the back of this arm, there was nothing there. And then I looked at the back of this arm, and slices down my arm like a fork had just been drugged through my skin, bleeding. So I went back into the teacher's room. I was like, hey, I'm gonna go to the clinic. She looked at my arm, she goes, okay. So dumb. Another dumb thing that I did that same year to hurt myself was my mom had this love seat that was broken slightly. So the springs were like poking out of weird places, and I fell asleep on the love seat. So I'm sleeping, I'm uncomfortable, I'm getting poked in the butt by one of these stupid springs. My mom comes out because she's trying to get me ready for school. And she comes out, sees that I'm asleep on the love seat and that I'm uncomfortable, so she decides to take her lovely brain and decides to move me into a position where I won't get poked by the spring in the ass anymore. So what she did was lift up my legs and like turn my body on an angle, like just my pivot point was my butt, okay? So she turned my whole body, and no longer were any springs touching me. I'm the idiot who stuck my arm down the middle of the love seat immediately afterwards, slicing my arm open on one of the springs. I don't know what gave me the bright idea to do that, but I did. So I ended up with a scar for years. Honestly, I'm surprised it's gone. But that happened. Another stupid thing I did to injure myself. Basically, all of my injuries resulted in me doing something stupid. So another stupid thing I was doing was I was baking at Perkins, my favorite job ever. Twice I did stupid things. I ended up opening the oven to get the muffins out because they were ready. And when I went to go put my arms in to grab the muffins, my one arm just decided to go boop on the actual like oven. So I burnt myself right here. Very large. It didn't heal for a very long time. That was the first burn I got at Perkins. The second burn I got at Perkins was because I was holding cookies in my arms. And my manager was talking to me, and I was trying to ask her if she wanted me to put the cookies in for any longer because they looked like they were slightly underdone. But as I'm talking to her, I'm slowly like resting my hands lower and lower to the point where the cookie sheet touched my arm. And you can still see like a slight... I'm not going to be able to... You can still see like a slight, I can't see anything, but a slight burn on my arm. It's like a bump from me burning my arm with the cookies in my hand. I heard my skin sizzle. I made a face, and then my manager goes, "That hurt, didn't it?" I was like, "Mm-hmm. Do you want me to put these back in?" "Yeah, they're a little underdone." So I put it back in. Another dumb time I burnt myself. This is at Dunkin' years later. I ended up making bagels, putting them in an oven, setting them for the time and everything. And as I pulled them out, as I went to go pull them out, I was being very careless. And normally I wear a jacket to work, but that day I didn't wear a jacket, and that I regret. So when I was pulling out the bagels, instead of having the safety net of the jacket on my arm to where the bagels could touch my arm without burning me, I didn't have the jacket, so they burnt me, and I have this gigantic gash here. I don't know if you can see that either. I can see like a discoloration, but I don't know. Still hurts to this day. I also ended up burning myself pulling croissants out. We had this croissant tray. It has little holes in it everywhere. So my burn on my arm ended up looking like Jack Skellington's face. You can't see it anymore because it's gone now, which sucks, but I really did like it. It looked like a little Jack Skellington smiley. I really liked it. And then another time I ended up injuring myself at Dunkin'. Dunkin' was not a fun time for me. I was wiping down a counter, and all I did was barely touch one of the metal edges of one of the iced tea holders. Barely touched it with my pinky, but this sliced it open, and it would not stop bleeding for at least an hour. I wasn't sent home, and I was very mad, but it would not stop bleeding. I had to hold my hand above my head with a paper towel for an hour, and it still was bleeding. It was bad. Another thing that I ended up doing at Dunkin', Dunkin' really was not my time. I was holding the ice bin, and I was like filling all the other ice bins that we had with the big bucket of ice. So the bucket of ice, I went to go put back on its hook. But when I put it back on its hook, like I was holding the handle with my hand, like you're supposed to. Apparently, there was this sharp edge, just sharp plastic edge on the handle itself where it's not supposed to be. So I'm holding the handle, putting it back, and it slices my knuckle open. I don't know if you could see, probably, oh, there it is. You could see that little gash right there still. Yeah, I did that with an ice bucket. Basically, don't let me do anything. I injure myself a lot. I was cleaning blenders at Starbucks, and I don't know what gave me this bright idea, but I went to go open the lid of the blender and let go of it, and then wipe down the rest. You're not supposed to let go of it. And I ended up letting go and wiping down the rest, and the lid shut real tight on my thumb, and so I've got this big black mark that I've been growing out for 4 months now. That hurt so bad when I first got it, and honestly, I don't know why I still have a thumbnail, because it was all the way at the base of my nail. I figured this thing was gonna fall off, but no, it's just growing out very slowly. I tried so hard not to curse that day, and I succeeded, but that hurt so bad. I screamed initially, not loud, just and then just groaning for like 20 minutes because the pain wouldn't go away. I think that's about it. I think that's about all of my oh no, one more. I injured myself sleeping. I was working at Dunkin' again. So I ended up coming into Dunkin', doing my job, and this is the time when there were two managers, me and another Rachel. Ugh, how convenient. So I went in to do my job, went home, went to sleep, blah, 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 like a normal person, like a normal human being. And then as I'm sleeping, I'm getting uncomfortable, seriously uncomfortable. And I didn't know why. So I woke up in pain, and I just couldn't walk that day at all. I don't know what happened. It just severely burned and hurt on my hip. And I was like, dude, what is going on? So as soon as I woke up, I texted everybody. I was like, hey, I'm going to have to be like severely careful with myself today because I hurt myself sleeping. And everyone's like, you what? And I'm like, I'm not kidding. I hurt myself sleeping. I was asleep and then I got hurt. What do you want from me? So it ended up, she sent me home early because I was in such bad pain that I couldn't walk. So I ended up going straight to like an emergency care thing. It's not one of those hospitals. It's just like a MedExpress or whatever. But we don't have MedExpress up here, which is dumb. So I ended up going to one of those emergency care places, and they immediately said that they thought it was sciatica. And I was like, huh? So I guess maybe I have sciatica. I did try to get like it investigated afterwards, but she didn't really find anything to diagnose me with, but she didn't think it was sciatica. But she got me x-rayed and then said that my x-rays were normal and just to take ibuprofen every day and to tell her if it gets worse. So basically I'm treating the issue. Like I'm treating the symptoms. I'm not treating the problem, which is exactly what I wanted to do the opposite of when I walked in. I told her, hey, I hate treating the symptoms. I hate it. I want to know what the problem is, and I want to fix the problem. And then she got me x-rayed and just said, take ibuprofen. Every once in a while it does inflame itself, so maybe I do have sciatica. I don't know at this point. But I'm pretty sure that's about it when it comes to me accidentally hurting myself. Or just hurting myself. I don't know. Anyway, I hope you have a nice day. I was going to add more to that, but I felt like it would have been even more cheesy than me saying, have a nice day, thanks. So, have a nice day, thanks.